Yes, folks, we have a full set of engine mounts. So we need to get those drilled up and see if this baby will fit. World's fastest bumper car update.
Much more familiar, Timon says.
I am very familiar.
Very familiar. We're working on bumper car. What are you doing now?
Yes, we had a planning meeting with my good friend Mr. Schneeberger, who is going to be helping me out with some welding and other bits and pieces, and we came up with lots of possible solutions for possible problems once we get this motor in the bumper car, and if it doesn't fit, we have ideas. Never fear, Schneeberger is here. He's a very handy man. No, he is. He's a handyman. So let's go drilling. Okay, right side bolted up, in position, pre-drilled for chassis rails. Left side dangling in the breeze at the moment. And an issue. So that mount there, we've got this little bit, this protrusion on the left-hand side as we look at it. So we have either got to cut something into the engine mount, which I don't really want to do, or we can grind that bit off the actual block, which I don't really want to do, or we can get spaced. Yeah, use a spacer. Let's try that. Actually needed a much smaller spacer, but there it is, and we got that at the same angle as the other side, thanks to our super cool spirit level. Mounts are in position, and we have parallel lines. Not a bad album. Now to those rear mounts, which are going to be a little bit more difficult to mark up where the hole needs to go. First off, we're going to have to notch off that corner, like we did on the first one that was a little bit too short. So we've got another 1/4 inch on top and a 1/4 inch on that trailing edge. So we need to knock off that corner. So there we have it, mimicked on the new one, and actually slightly improved. Funnily enough, on the other side, we don't need to do that because there is nothing in the way. So that'll fit beautifully, just like that. Yeah, so we don't need to modify this one at all. Brilliant! Mark that up. How did I do that? Well, I took a paintbrush, worked it all the way through from the other side, and marked it up like that. And look what just turned up. Bolts, yes. Bolts for going through the mount into the chassis rails. Yeah, perfect length. And some spares, because you never know when they might come in handy. And one rear mount with a big ass hole for a big ass 12mm bolt and spacer. Fits perfectly. Obviously bolt is way too long, waiting for those to come in, but yeah, that's all good. Okay, we have all the holes drilled, various sizes, bit by bit as usual, and with a little bit of oil, fork oil actually, just to help proceedings. Makes a big difference actually. Well, I would say that was a good morning's work. Yes, that's how long it took me, all bloody morning. Why is he painting it red? Well, for a very good reason. I need to see how much thread I need. And as you can see, not a lot. Clever though, huh? Well, before heading off to Ace to get some bolts, I found I've got some. And they're all 12 by 1.75 pitch and various lengths. Still a little long for one job, as you can tell. But I might just cut one of these down. The left-hand side fits perfectly with our lock washer as well as our spacers. Are you getting excited? I am, because the next stage is to try and put that motor in the car. And the right-hand side, yes, I didn't cut the bolt in the end. What I did was use one of the nuts to space it out a bit, and a washer and a lock washer, and we're good. We're tight enough for now. Okay, well, this is exciting. We are kind of mounted up. Huh? And not in a horsey way. Yes, well, I'm genuinely excited to see if all my measurements are anywhere close, honestly. It's a certain amount of intrepidation involved, for sure. Because I could be horribly wrong with everything. So, yes, time to find a new coat hanger. Yes, folks, it's really happening. Slight delay in proceedings, mainly because of the height of these and getting them underneath the C-frame, yes. So, with the aid of extra breeze blocks or cinder blocks and some chunks of wood, rather precariously balanced, it's kind of level actually, which is amazing. Slightly higher ride height than we want. This is not a hovercraft, but anyway, it'll allow us to get it in there, and then we can see what's what. Take the strain. What's the worst that could happen? I don't know, but we're better prepared than normal. It's officially airborne. Free and clear. Okay, so initial lower down didn't go too well. I think the exhaust was fouling on the chassis rail. You can see there's like very little clearance. And yeah, I managed to bend that engine mount already, which is not a good sign if they're not thick enough. That one held up. Front is still a way off because those need to settle down at the right angle. And maybe well, no, the whole engine needs to kind of tilt forward, as we know. But it's looking good from the point of view of the radiator situation and the seat situation. Shall we drop it some more? Yes, folks, this is a historic moment. We are dropping the motor in. Anyway, while we're looking at this, I'm not bothered by that because obviously we can chop it further up, and we have our flexible front there ready and waiting to take the exhaust wherever we want to take it. So that's not a problem. That is though. So what I think we've established is that we're a little bit optimistic with our gauge of steel in a Colin Chapman-esque kind of way. And so what I'm doing is I've got a jack stand under the rear end of it, which hopefully will catch it sooner or later. So that the front end can lower as I drop it on the chain, and we'll see whether that all just kind of lines up really at this point. While we got it here, we might as well find that out, right? Even if we muller those, because so what we found out at this point, well, actually my engine mount design is perfect. That's kind of the right angle. Everything's good. Just need a little thicker gauge steel, I think. We also have plenty of clearance on the exhaust. That's good, at least from the bottom level of things. There's no issues there whatsoever. So that is good news. We also have, I think, plenty of clearance at the front end. Although that radiator is pushed forward a little bit, as you can see by the angle of the brackets there that I mounted it with, it may not be able to sit quite that far forward once we get the body on. And so that's the other thing, what I can't check right now. Because of that situation, I'm not kind of prepared to try and risk lowering it completely off the engine hoist and dropping it onto those mounts on the frame and then taking away the engine hoist to see if the body will actually fit. That said, this is a lot further forward than I thought it was going to be, which is good from one point of view, except that I don't think we've got the height in the bodywork at that point for that. Bearing in mind we've got to put air filters on top of these, even if we get some really flat ones. So bear with me, I'm thinking on my feet here. Bearing in mind the exhaust situation, which is barely under the chassis there, we can probably afford to drop the whole motor 2 inches, which is good. From a steadiness point of view, the lower the motor, the better. So these boys can be a couple of inches shorter and maybe a couple of inches thicker. We're definitely going to have to rethink the 4-into-1 situation at this point, because I don't want a 200-degree centigrade enema, as my friend Mr. Schneeberger pointed out. But I think we can cut it off about here, still allowing for a splice, and then the flexible tubing taking it off in that direction and out through the C-frame. Yes, a side exhaust, because side exhausts are cool. Even if we have to chop it earlier down here somewhere, not a problem, and then just make up a Y piece. Anyway, the point of this exercise was to get information and to see if any of my measurements measured up, and some of them do, some of them don't. We'll see. What we have established is that with the engine mounts as they are, high point, including air filters, hopefully, is like 20 inches. And I think we had 18. So if we do drop these mounts by 2 inches, which we can, actually, no, we can't. We can only drop them by 1 inch, thanks to that ridiculous thing, whatever that is, and the bloody oil filter. Unless we can find a smaller oil filter, but I doubt it. It would have to be a whole inch shorter. And on the other side, we've got the same problem with the bloody water pump. We've only got like 1 inch, not even. Unless, of course, we took the chassis rails out another inch. But then that has implications on our axles. But then, honestly, these are easy enough to machine up. And we haven't even started on the rear end axle. So a lot to think about. But honestly, not that far off on a first kind of shot at it all. So checking clearance again on the bodywork, we got 18 inches, except we haven't, because 2 inches of it drops into the C-frame. So unless that shifts back a whole foot, which it can't because that's where the seat is, quite simply, it won't fit in its current configuration. So let's review. We're going to drop the engine mounts by 1 inch because we can do that. That gives us 1 inch, but we need 2 to find. And there they are with a little to spare. So by mounting the chassis rails to the bottom of the C-frame as opposed to the top, we gain a full 2.7 inches. So I think the easiest way to test my theory is to lift the motor up, flip everything over, having taken off the radiator and everything else, and just see if that kind of measures up. Right? As you saw, I've flipped the whole chassis upside down. I'm guessing it would actually fit this way. Whether I do that, I might do it anyway. Anyway, we're on the rails here up at the front, which is good. What do we have to check now? I can't remember. Oh yes, well, firstly, exhaust clearance on the ground, effectively, and I think we've still got just enough. Maybe it's close. Yeah, I think we're good. It's 2.5 inches, and we got 5.5 inches of the wheel, which is going to be I can't remember, but it's going to be lower than the chassis rail where it mounts. So yeah, we're good. We're good on the exhaust. Good news. So the next question is the height of the motor. Yes, we have the magical 18 inches. So it's been an exciting weekend. We've established that we can work with the existing R6 exhaust system with a little bit of modification. The entire ride height of the vehicle will be increased by 3 inches, I guess, because we flipped it around the other way. Not entirely happy about that. And we're going to have to remake all the engine mounts, different thickness and different offsets and stuff. And actually I prefer the idea of the spacer rather than the longer plate here. So I'm going to rethink that as well, especially on this side. That's the side that caved in. But overall, not a bad first attempt. So the modification on this side is using the same spacer as I did on the other side to push it out further, and maybe that's where I just got it all wrong. I thought I'd measured that up pretty accurately, but there you go. And do we need that ridiculous angle, honestly? Especially once we drop it an inch. We kind of did this side just to avoid the water pump. Yep, a lot of progress, a lot of information learnt. Took all bloody day, but we got there. Thanks for tuning in again. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down here somewhere. And encourage others to watch my lunacy.